A New Hope, near Chapter 132 Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of Azazyel's stories. Engage footholds. I ordered and I heard 2B, and A2 slammed their large swords into the ground while they held on tightly to the handle while Samus turned into her morph ball form and had energy tethers lock her into the ground. And in that moment they got ready. Metroid Prime roared, with the roar being a terrible thing that actually attacked my consciousness, making me cringe at that particular attack. Seeing me flinch and the other girls taking defensive positions, the massive armored spider like Metroid screamed as it then rushed towards my standing form, but with its sonic attack over I held up a hand. Even with only one eye opened and with a snarl my eyes glowed with a rainbow corona of lights as I called upon my gap semblance. "Fuck you, you oversized spider." I swore as in front of me and in front the Metroid Prime was a large portal, and even as the arachnid tore up the ground as it tried to stop, but it couldn't stop in time as I pushed the portal forward, and with a screech that made my ears pop, the massive form of Metroid Prime inevitably fell into the portal. With the monster going through the gap portal I clenched my hand, closing the portal, and as it closed I heard a screech that filled me with joy as the back couple legs of the multi-legged monster were cut off by the dimensional blade-like edges of the portal. But as I closed the portal and relaxed I couldn't help a groan, and feeling a burning come out of my nose I grimaced, seeing as my hands came away from my nose bloody. Opening a portal miles away and pushing a large load through it without Jean helping is still too costly. I muttered mostly to myself as 2B came and without a word wrapped an arm around my waist to help me stand up better. "Jake, you threw the Metroid Prime into the atmosphere, but not high enough that it's going to go into orbit or drift into space. We are sending flight units and recalibrating the orbital weapons platforms to where it's likely going to land." White spoke through the comms and I grunted in understanding as I pinched my nose to help with the nose bleed from overusing my semblance. I had a very powerful semblance, and honestly I think the reason it was so powerful was due to my guardian enriching my soul with the divinity it absorbed from drinking all the darkness pools back in Remnant. This was another good reason to believe that Chozo Elder told me that I needed to fix the imbalance of yin/spiritual energies with some yang/life energy. "Let's go down to the depths and check for any Metroid eggs and get rid of any phazon down here," I spoke as we started placing lava dust crystals into the tunnel walls. There was no need for us to put ourselves into danger of being corrupted or killed by the phazon-enhanced kaiju that was Metroid Prime. Just let Yoarha repeatedly nuke it with exotic munitions, both scientific and historic, with magical weapons from the Nier and RWBY universes, was my firm opinion. I got my bravery and arrogance kicked the shit out of myself when I fought Adam and Eve back in Nier. Killing kaijus was very much the literal reason orbital laser, plasma, magical, and railguns existed. Launch rods 1 to 25 through the railguns. 20, 87-0 begin artillery bombardment. 25-0 begin surface missile launches on the target area and carpet bomb with burn and lightning dust munitions. White ordered in rapid fire as she watched without a change in expression as Yoarha flight suits hovered at great distance and used their lesser rail guns mounted on their suit to little effect on the Metroid Prime. A being conceptually invulnerable to kinetic energy. Could we make rail gun rounds with the chitin covering the rounds to send the rounds at close to light speed if the rounds cannot feel the stress of kinetic energy? White mused all the while countless exotic missiles and effects began bombarding Metroid Prime. But after the previous orders of Munchkins were cleared, White couldn't help a small TSK escaping her and her mechanical mind whirled as she considered options beyond asking her god Jake to simply throw the beast into the local star. "Operation Witch Trial is a go," White said, reluctance clearly in her voice along with finality as she gave the order. A portal opened in front of the rampaging Metroid Prime, and from out of the portal that Yoarha was able to get from Jake to open to Salem's castle through his guardian, came Yora's currently strongest singular combat asset. Salem walked out of the portal and seeing the large monster before her, she rose an eyebrow and then looked up into the sky directly at the satellite's lens, seemingly making direct eye contact with White, making the leader of Yoarha huff as Salem smirked. And White was perfectly capable of reading Salem's lips even if there was no audio feed, as the immortal witch rubbed her lower stomach area and said, "He is mine this weekend." White's hands crushed the fine crystal glass she had been drinking out of as she snarled, "You bitch. You knew it was Yora's slumber party this weekend." But Salem couldn't hear White and instead just focused on the monster that was now rushing her as the Yoarha assets pulled back to give Salem room to breath. With a snap of Salem's fingers, dozens of magical glyphs formed over the many legs of the monster, and then with a crunching noise the glyphs teleported away with the legs with them, making Metroid Prime scream. Potent magic resistance as well. But your soul, even if tainted with a divine gestalt, That itself is an even greater weakness. White could read Salem's lips were saying, and then Salem held up a palm and a large spear of pure white light formed and a lance was thrown into the eye-hole plate of the Metroid Prime, and White raised an eyebrow at the sight, as she was well aware of how Salem normally preferred elemental magic like Jake did, than conceptual magic like the divine pure light she had when Jake reversed the darkness within her. White watched carefully as Salem systemically tore apart the massive monster over the course of the next 5 minutes, and finally as an anomalous large soul of the Phazon gestalt on the planet rose up from the corpse it had been puppeting. White didn't bat an eye as Salem shredded the soul into nothingness, as she was well aware the witch was well used to dealing with souls over the many. For many years she had been alive. Finally, when Salem took another darkness portal back to Remnant, White couldn't help but pout as the many operator and defender units looked at her with blame, as they were aware that now, because White called in Salem for help killing the beast, they wouldn't have the large slumber party with Jake. It's not my fault. It was for the cause. She tried to defend herself, but her subordinates turned their nose at her and she could only mentally scream mutiny. As a couple of androids began muttering about having White replaced so there wouldn't be a debt to Salem,